Okay, welcome back, everybody. I don't know, this part 6? I think we're up to part 6. Probably going to be the shortest video in the whole series. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to destroy one of these enemy player ships. So let's take a look at, a couple ways we could do this. I think I'm going to go with the player laser. So I'll bring up my player laser, and I'm going to go into here where he's moving, this one, and I'm going to add another trigger event. So I'm going to do an action browser, trigger event, like so. And this one is going to be on trigger enter something tagged as, aha, I didn't do that, did I? Alright, so let's go back and fix that. So my enemy ship needs to be tagged as, let's add a tag, add enemy. Go back to enemy ship and make sure he is tagged as an enemy, like so. Alright, so back inside my laser. So I've got this on trigger enter with something that is tagged as an enemy. I'm going to send an event that is hit enemy, like so. Okay. So let's do a add transition, hit enemy. The send event I send is going to be hit enemy. Yeah, makes sense. I'm going to leave delete me right up here. Add state. This is going to be destroy enemy, like so. Let's move this over here. Hit enemy is going to come over here. Now I want to do one other thing. In my trigger event right here, this collider, what this is, if I store this is going to be the collider of the object I hit, which in this case would be the object I hit that is tagged as enemy. Specifically, it would be the enemy ship I just hit. So let's store this as a new variable, and I'm going to call this enemy hit. It's the enemy I just hit. Okay, so let's go to destroy enemy over here. We're going to bring up our action browser. We're going to do a destroy object, like so. The object I want to destroy is going to be this enemy I just hit. No delay. Once we are finished doing that, I'm going to go ahead, come up here, and delete my laser. My laser gets destroyed too. Now I want to do one other minor thing while I'm in here. I want the player to get points for destroying the enemy. So let's go to our player. Right, here's our player. And I'm going to add a new state machine. Actually, let's do I have a prefab of my player? I do not, do I? Okay, that's fine. So my player, I'm going to add a new state machine. I'm going to call this state machine, I don't even know if I should put it in there exactly. Thinking, going back and forth, going back and forth. No, I'm going to make a new object, game object. I'm going to create an empty object, and I'm going to call this object game manager. And I made it empty because it doesn't actually have to exist, have to be visible or do anything at all. And I'm going to go ahead and put it at 0, 0, 0. Let's add a component. I'm going to add a playmaker component, playmaker FSM, and this is going to be a let's call this score system. Okay, that's what I'm going to call it, score system. And let's go to let's edit. Now at the moment my score system's not going to do a whole heck of a lot. I'm going to go to my variables, and I'm going to create a new variable. It's going to be an int, and I'm going to call this variable player score, like so. Make sure it is an inspector variable. So now my game manager has this variable called player score. Alright, let's go back to player laser. So right in here, what I'm wanting to do is I want to add some points to this score out here. So let's go to destroy enemy. We're going to do an action browser, and we're going to do a let's see, what do I want to call this, or what action am I looking for? I'm looking for a set, let me see, let's do this. Let's do FSM int, and let's see what options we have. I can get one and I can set one. Alright, so here's what we can do, right? We can either get, if I set it, I can set it and I can give it a value. So I assign a value to it. Well, what I'm wanting to do is add to it, okay? So what I'm going to have to do to pull this off then is go back into my game manager. So now you see that in order to increase this, I'm going to have something inside my game manager that will allow me to increase my score. So back to game manager. So this one right here is just going to be waiting. I'm going to have another state, add state. I'm going to call this one increase score. I'm going to create myself an event, events, and the event I'm going to make right here is got points. Okay, so we're waiting. Now we've got a transition that's going to be got points, and that got points is going to come over here to increase score. Then we're going to have an add transition finished is going to go over here to, back to waiting. So we've increased our score. All right, we're going to need two more variables. So let's go to variables. One variable I'm going to need is a bool. This is a Boolean variable for testing. So I guess I completely lied about this being the shortest video of the series, but it seemed to me that scoring should go here. So yeah, it's going to get bigger. Okay, so bool, this is going to be a, I'm going to call this, I'm going to say hit something. And by default, it's false. I'm going to need one more variable. This is going to be an int. And this is going to be, I'm going to call this points to add. All right, like so. They don't need to be inspectors. The only one I really want to be an inspector is the player score so I can see it. Okay, so inside my increase score, what I'm going to do is action browser. I'm going to do an int add, which is right there. So the variable is going to be player score, their current score, and what I'm going to add to it is the points to add. I'm just going to do it once and then go back over here. All right, so inside waiting, what we have here is a bool test. Bool test. And the variable I'm looking for is hit something, and if it is true, we're going to got points. Do this every frame. Okay, there you go. So if there might be some questions on this. Hopefully not. Hopefully that kind of makes sense what I'm doing there. So I've got this bool variable that whenever it's true, we're going to be getting some points. And over here I'm going to add whatever points I need to add to my score. Now the thing about this right now is because I'm using variables, this is kind of abstracted out. So right now you might be looking at it thinking, well, when do I know I hit something? We're not there yet. The next thing you might be wondering is, well, what do I know? How many points do I know I'm adding to it? We're about to find out. So let's check that one out. So we'll go back to our player laser. Right here inside our destroy enemy, we're going to do an action browser. We're going to do a set FSM bool, like so. We're going to set this bool, and what we're going to want, I'm going to do a game object. We're going to do a specify game object. And the object I want to use is going to be some object called, or some object that is a game manager object, okay? And this is just my variable name. The name of the FSM that I'm going to be accessing, and I'm going to have to actually type it down here, so I've got to make sure that I type it correctly since I'm using the variables. It doesn't know what it's going to be. If I were to drag it over here, to kind of show you this, if I were to go ahead and take my game manager and drag it right into here, like so, where's it? Game manager. Right there. Huh, interesting. Okay, never mind then. Never mind. Forget what I was saying. So I'm going to use variable. Variables are better to use anyway. So the name of the FSM that I'm interested in, if I go to game manager, it was score system. Okay, so let's go back to our player laser. So I care about an FSM named SCORESYSTEM. And the variable I care about is one that was called got hit, and it is going to be set to true. And I can verify this by coming over here and seeing this stuff. Oh yeah, this I can't drag from the scene into a project thing. This is a prefab, that's why it's not letting me do that. So all the more reason to be using my variables. Alright, so hit something, there we go, like so. Okay, so that's working. I'm going to have to do some stay on track, stay on target. Okay, so my game manager has a points to add and a hit something. So let me go back to my laser. And this was not got hit, this was hit something, like so. Let's add one more. This is going to be an FSM int. I'm going to set an FSM int. I'm basically going to duplicate what I've got up here. Let's specify. Once again, let's do this game manager thing. FSM name is going to be what was that? Score system. Variable name is going to be points to add. Now you have to make sure you're typing, spelling all of this correctly. And I'm going to give them 50 points each time they shoot a bad guy. Alright, okay, that's going to work. We need to do one other thing. Let's go one other thing, and this other thing is that our laser is going to have to go off and find this object in our scene. So we'll go with Action Browser. We're going to do a find game object. Right there it is. Let me select my game manager real quick, and I need to give it a tag. So I'm going to go to add tag, add a tag. This is going to be tagged as game manager, like so. Select game manager, tag it as game manager. There we go. And back to our laser. So I need to find an object, object name or tag. I'm going to use tag, game manager. I'm going to store this in this variable called game manager. Okay, so here's how this works. When the laser gets created, when the player shoots, it gets created and it starts moving. At some point in time, the laser will collide with something that has a tag of enemy. When that happens, it comes over here. It is then going to go ahead and destroy the enemy. Then it is going to go look in the scene that it's currently in and find an object that has a tag of game manager, which is this right here. And it's going to take that object and store it in a variable called game manager. Then we're going to move down and we're going to set a bool. The bool is going to be called hit something within a state machine called score system that is inside of this game object that we found right there. And we're going to repeat this for the integer right there. Last little tweak we have to do here is inside our game manager. Once we have added our scores, we need to go ahead and turn this boolean back to false. Otherwise, it's just going to loop right here. So once we've added our score here, let's go ahead and do a set bool. There it is, set bool value. And what I want to set is going to be my hit something. It is false. All right, let's see what works or what doesn't work. Hopefully it works. It should work. We must be confident. Okay. Die. There it goes. He died. But did it work? It must have. I have 50 points. See my points up there? I have 100 points. Let me get you to 150. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Got him to 200 points. Okay, so you can see my score going up right there. So we have a working score system. At some point in time, we're going to have to implement this with our user interface, but you know that's going to be a problem for a different time. No big deal there. All right, pretty cool stuff. Yeah, so did some stuff in here. You have questions? Feel free to ask them down below, and I will do my best to get them answered and try to clarify anything that might be confusing in what I did with this. Yeah, okay, so cool. All right, so that's the end of this part.